You've probably seen the show. The control room, the panic, the man they made, the villain. Almost everyone has an image of Chernobyl in their head by now. But the actual Soviet government spent 6 years quietly changing its own story about what really caused it. In 1986, the world was told it was the operator's fault. In 1992, a second, quieter report reversed that. This time, blame fell on the reactor itself, and a flaw the men in that control room were never even told about. That second report is real. It is public, and it tells a story that is, in places, quietly different from the one you watched. This is not another retelling of Chernobyl. This is the official report, the actual physics, and exactly where the story you know parts ways with it. You're watching Black Box Breakdown. Chernobyl, the official report versus the show. Chapter 1. The flaw nobody was told about. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl plant in Soviet Ukraine had been running for barely 2 years. It used a design called the RBMK, built with graphite and water, cheaper and easier to mass produce than the reactors the West was building. It also, unlike almost every Western reactor, had no full containment building around it. If something inside ever truly went wrong, there was nothing built to hold it in. And it had a flaw baked into its physics. In a normal reactor, if the cooling water starts to boil away, the reaction slows down. In this one, the opposite happened. Losing water made the reaction speed up. Engineers call it a positive void coefficient. In plain terms, at low power, this reactor did not want to calm down. It wanted to run away. There was a second flaw, just as dangerous. The emergency shutdown rods had graphite tips. For a split second, pushing them in didn't slow the reaction down. It sped it up first. This was not a total secret. 11 years earlier, at a sister plant in Leningrad, an almost identical reactor suffered a partial meltdown rooted in the exact same physics. It was never discussed openly. The fix waited until after Chernobyl. The men running Reactor 4 on the night of April 26, 1986, knew none of this. Chapter 2, The Night. That night, the crew was running a safety test. Could the turbine's own leftover spin generate enough power to run the cooling pumps during a blackout, just for the 40 seconds until backup generators kicked in? The test should have run that afternoon. Kiev's grid operator asked for a delay, needing the power. So it slipped to the middle of the night onto a different, less experienced crew than the one who'd planned it. To hold the reactor at the right power for the test, most of the control rods were pulled out, far more than safety rules allowed. That single decision would matter enormously. At 1:23 and 40 seconds in the morning, with the reactor already unstable, shift supervisor Alexander Akimov gave the order to shut it all down. Because of that graphite tip flaw, in a reactor already unbalanced, hitting the emergency shutdown did not calm it down. It spiked power instead. Fuel channels ruptured. 2 explosions followed, seconds apart. The second blew the 1,000-ton roof off the reactor building and set the exposed graphite core on fire in the open air. Alexander Akimov and the young engineer at the controls, Leonid Toptunov, both stayed at the plant afterward, still believing the reactor was intact. Both died of radiation sickness within 3 weeks. Chapter 3. The story that changed. Months later, at a meeting in Vienna, the Soviet Union gave the world its first official explanation. It was led by a chemist named Valery Legasov. That first report blamed the operators. Rule violations, a bad test, human error. The reactor's own design was mentioned only briefly, almost as an aside. 6 years later, a second, far less publicized report reversed that finding. This is that report, published by the International Atomic Energy Agency in 1992. Its own words, according to the first report, the main cause was the operators. According to this one, the main cause was the reactor's design. The men in that control room, it turns out, had been set up to fail by a machine with 2 known hidden flaws and then blamed for the result. Anatoly Dyatlov, the engineer supervising that night, was convicted in 1987 and served 3 years. He spent the rest of his life arguing he'd been blamed for a flaw nobody told him existed, The 1992 report says he had a point without clearing him entirely. And the cover-up ran deeper than the trial. Pripyat's 49,000 residents weren't evacuated for over 36 hours. The May Day parade in Kiev went ahead anyway. The world only found out because radiation alarms went off at a power plant in Sweden, hundreds of miles away. Valery Legasov, the man who delivered that first, incomplete report, secretly recorded his own account on cassette tapes before he died. He was found dead in his apartment on April 27, 1988, 2 years and 1 day after the disaster. Chapter 4. The Show versus the Report. HBO's Chernobyl in 2019 got the physics right, and the men who cleared radioactive graphite off that rooftop by hand were real, exactly as brutal as depicted. But the show never puts that 1992 reversal on screen. It ends on Legasov's private crusade, closer to the 1986 story than the corrected one. One of its central scientists, Ulana Khomyuk, never existed. The show says so itself in its own credits. She stands in for several real people, folded into one for clarity. The 3 divers sent to drain water beneath the reactor in the show are framed as a suicide mission. In reality, all 3 survived. One of them has publicly said nobody threw them a hero's welcome afterward because nothing about it felt heroic at the time. And you may have heard the story of a bridge where townspeople gathered to watch the fire glow and all later died from the radiation. That story has no real death record behind it. Most serious historians treat it as an urban legend, one the show itself may have helped spread. None of this makes the show bad. Its own writer has said the goal was never to sensationalize, only to compress a true, complicated story into something people would actually watch. That's just not always the same thing as the official record. Chapter 5. What it actually cost. 31 people died in the first weeks, officially. 2 instantly, 28 from radiation sickness, 1 from a heart attack. The long-term toll is where honest disagreement starts. The World Health Organization estimates up to around 4,000 eventual cancer deaths among the most exposed. Other independent estimates run past 90,000. Nobody has settled this, and anyone who tells you they have is picking a number to suit their argument. What is not disputed? Somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000 people were mobilized to contain it. Some of them, nicknamed biorobots, cleared radioactive debris off the roof by hand in shifts as short as tens of seconds because the actual robot's electronics failed in the radiation. The original hastily built shelter was replaced in 2016 by a new steel arch, slid into place over 5 days, funded by dozens of countries, built to last 100 years. Pripyat, the city built for the plant's workers, is still empty, 40 years later. A handful of elderly residents, mostly women in their 70s and 80s, quietly moved back in anyway and were never forced back out. What stays with me here isn't the explosion. It's the 6 years it took for the truth to catch up to the story. The men in that control room were blamed first, and only partly unblamed, long after it mattered to them. Great television compresses a true story to make it watchable. It's still worth knowing exactly where the compression happened. If a report that quietly corrected itself 6 years later got you, wait until you see the actual black box report behind the Boeing 737 MAX. Subscribe to Black Box Breakdown.
If this one got under your skin a little, good. That's the point. And it only keeps happening because people like you keep showing up.
So do one thing for me. Hit subscribe. It is free, and it is the whole reason Black Box can keep taking these disasters apart.